You're watching Beyond Markets, where we bring you up to speed on development outcomes in Africa. I'm Kenneth Igbomor, and thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Coming up on today's show, we'll continue to put the spotlight on Nigeria's legal systems ahead of the elections of the Nigerian Bar Association. My guests will discuss how to enhance Nigeria's judicial systems. You can join the conversation and let us know what you think. The hashtag to use is Beyond Markets. You can also let me know what you think. My handle is at Kenneth Igbomor. Now, as Nigeria's lawyers prepare for the elections of the Nigerian Bar Association, one of the candidates aspiring to be the president of the association, Olumide Akpata, a partner and head of corporate and commercial practice at Templars, joins me now as we explore some new thinking to enhance Nigeria's judicial institutions. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Olumide. And let's start from that point, looking at ways to enhance the judicial institutions in Nigeria.
Thank you for having me, Kenneth. I think the conversation around the judiciary and the inefficiencies that I think exist in that system really cannot be tackled without the complete and total buy-in of, I believe, no less a person than the chief executive officer of this country, the president. We have had many conversations before now, but I think the mistake that we've made before now is to situate that conversation with the Attorney General. The problems are many. There's a systemic issue that only the CEO, only the commander-in-chief can really come to the table with the political will to deal with the issues that affect the judiciary. From just simple issues like infrastructure, down to issues of how judges are recruited, how they're remunerated, the independence and financial autonomy of the judiciary. These are big ticket issues that we will need to convoke a conversation where the buy-in, where government will sit at the table with all of us stakeholders in the justice services sector or judicial services sector and determine how we want to go forward. Anything short of that, we'll be papering over the cracks, we'll be applying Band-Aid to a deep wound. So a lot needs to be done. And we need political will, we need sincerity of purpose on the part of the leadership of this country.
All right, a lot you say needs to be done, but you pointed strictly at the autonomy of the judiciary there. And I'd like you to speak on this as well in more detail, and especially with regards to the issue about separation of powers.
Yeah, okay, so let me dive in a little bit. So the starting point really to me is financial autonomy is critical to the independence of the judiciary. And independence of the judiciary is critical to the rule of law flourishing in any jurisdiction. So I think it's important that we do not pay lip service to the issue. It is only in my country that I read a headline that says the governor of a state has bought 12 Toyota Jeeps for a judge and there's jubilation in judiciary. I mean, what kind of justice would we expect if that governor becomes a party in a matter before that judge or those judges? There's something that really rankles, as far as I'm concerned, with regard to how the money meant for the judiciary is allocated and who actually manages the finances of the judiciary. So, and because of that lack of independence, a lot is suffering. We still have our judges writing in longhand. The infrastructure that is necessary for automating the judiciary has not been put in place. It took COVID to show our tender underbelly as far as these issues are concerned. It took the incidence of COVID-19 to reveal all of that we are really operating at very suboptimal levels at the judiciary level. And when you consider that about 80% of the lawyers in Nigeria operate in that space, in other words, we have more litigators in Nigeria than we do have corporate commercial lawyers. You'll find out that this, at the end of the day, directly affects the bottom line as far as lawyers are concerned. But I will not be selfish about it and only speak to the issue of how it affects lawyers. It affects this entire citizenry of Nigeria. If the issue of justice delivery is impeded or impaired by the factors that I've just pointed out, what will happen is that justice will definitely not be done. Justice cannot be done where that institution or that arm of government is limping. And that is my problem. So when I say we need to park it at the door of our leaders, I'm not passing the buck. I'm just simply saying that It is a big conversation, and we cannot hold that conversation in silos. Everybody must be at the table, and the man who is in charge must be at that table. Otherwise, we'll be chasing shadows.
All right, then bringing everybody at the table to make that very comprehensive conversation for the country to move forward. But then what you said still points to the heart of the perception of the judiciary. And I'd like to know, in your view and opinion, how best we can improve that perception.
Well, with regard to when you say perception now, I take it you're referring to how the judiciary is perceived by the by the public. I think to fix it, it will take all stakeholders coming around to, firstly, we must, on the issue of corruption in the judiciary, that is one of the key indicators, that's one of the reasons why we find that the judiciary has fallen really low in the estimation of the public, because of the perception and the reality of corruption. And so, first and foremost, we must battle that headlong, or head on, and ensure that we tackle the issue. And when I say we, I'm referring now to the Nigerian Bar Association. I'm referring now to other regulators. We make sure that, firstly, there is a system for the speedy disciplining of judges who are found to be corrupt, so that the public will regain their confidence and understand that bad behavior would not be tolerated. There will be a naming and a shaming of those who are badly behaved. Of course, it takes two to tango. Anybody involved in corrupting the judiciary would need to be excoriated, would need to be called out. And the Nigerian Bar Association has a major role to play in this regard. We are participants, or at least we're ministers in Temple of Justice. There is no way we can say we do not know how the goings on with regard to corruption. We must be able to point this out, and as an association, we must be able to deprecate such conduct, and then also take the lead, take the charge in ensuring that corrupt judges are not on our bench or our benches. And then also with regard to the estimation of the public, how they see the judiciary, there's also that as far as the business community is concerned, many people who are business people do not think that our judges or our judiciary is commercially sensitive or commercially aware enough to understand the role they play with regard to business and commerce. That also has to be fixed. Our judges and our courts must understand the implications that some of their decisions have on the free flow of commerce. Of course, we're not asking for anybody to cut corners, but we're asking for a certain degree of sensitivity to understand that what they do actually has a direct correlation, or what they do not do has a direct correlation to whether or not we will get the much needed investment in this country that can move us forward. There is a need for confidence in the judiciary to be restored, at least on the part of the foreign investors, for them to submit themselves to this jurisdiction, knowing that they can expect to receive justice, and that justice is not for sale, and that we have knowledgeable people on the bench who understand, who know the law and know how to apply the law. So those are, Kenneth, there's quite a lot we can talk about on this subject, but maybe let me drop those two on the table for now.
All right, but what you said kind of points a lot to, capacity and integrity, and how can we ensure that we strengthen that, and what role can the NBA play in all of this?
Well, capacity, I'm going to latch on to the word capacity because for me that is so critical. I don't think I don't think we should have judges on the bench who are lacking in capacity, who are not able to hold their own. So the system of recruiting or appointing judges must be closely scrutinized. It must be, and the NBA has a role to play in that process, because we sit at the National Judicial Council, we sit at the Federal Judicial Services Commission, and we must not be rubber stamps in the process of recruiting judges, because judges are critical to the whole. Everything points to the fact that if you have judges who cannot hold their own, the system of justice can collapse, because there will be a lack of confidence in that system. So it's important for us to scrutinize scrupulously the way judges are appointed. And there was a bit of a brouhaha recently with regard to the appointment of judges at the Federal Capital Territory. I just think that the process has to be has to be extremely transparent. The process has to be there cannot be any opacity with regard to how judges are appointed. Too much is riding on those who occupy that office. So it is critical that we have a clearly laid out system of appointing judges that we are faithful to. No cutting of corners. Whoever comes to the bench must show a good understanding of the law. That is critical. I mean, it must show experience with regard to how the law should be applied in the circumstances that he will be confronted with. It cannot be that the judiciary will become a dumping ground for those who may not have done so well as legal practitioners. It cannot be the case. We must apply the strictest conditions with regard to those who are appointed to the bench. And with regard to the issue of integrity that you have mentioned, I think.
Yeah, Olumide, you can continue on integrity.
Yeah, with regard to the issue of integrity that you have mentioned, again, I mean, if we are scrupulous in the way judges are appointed, firstly, people of a doubtful character will never find their way to the bench in the first place. We must apply the highest of standards to individuals who are called to serve on the bench, because more than anybody else, they must, like Caesar's wife, be seen to be, in fact, actually be above board. Now, in the event that one or two fall through the cracks and they show up on the bench because somebody dropped the ball, there must be a system in place, like I've mentioned already, to make sure that they don't find themselves anywhere near the bench. So those are the two issues. You're spot on, Kenneth. Capacity and integrity are two major issues that many people are concerned about regarding the bench.
I'm talking about administration of justice here, and I'm looking at how best we can ensure that we continually see we build an institution where we're seeing fairness and equitability in any political setting, regardless of what political party is in power.
Well, I think you have thrown the dragnet quite wide now. I think you've left the courtroom, and just generally fairness and equity would always, in any country, in any jurisdiction where the rule of law is respected, where the rule of law is allowed to thrive, where the rule of law is given its pride of place, in any jurisdiction, in any country, fairness and equity would always be par for course. Fairness and equity would, in any setting, in any arrangement, be it political, be it economic, be it in the socio-economic space, as soon as you begin to water down, or you begin to water down the applicability of rule of law in any setting, that is when you begin to find unfair practices and inequitable practices taking center stage. So for me, I think the panacea is the promotion of the rule of law, which, by the way, is a key mandate of the Nigerian Bar Association. And so we must be eternally vigilant. We must always ensure that we keep watch and ensure that there's no erosion of rule of law in our jurisdiction, because once that is allowed to happen, it becomes a slippery slope, and then you find this unfairness and this inequity that you allude to.
All right, no doubt the Nigerian Bar Association has a huge role to play when it comes to promoting and protecting human rights. But I'm trying to see how we can, move the needle from where we are and get better outcomes on this.
Yeah, okay, well, where we are, I'm thoroughly dissatisfied with where we are with regard to, firstly, just the respect for the rights of citizens. I think we can be doing much better. And as far as the role of the Nigerian Bar Association is concerned, it is almost a divine mandate that we protect or we stand up in the defense of others whose rights have been trampled upon. And for me, I think we need to do a bit more than we are doing. We need to be more vocal in terms of our defense of the rights of others. But then let me draw your attention to the fact that we have also become victims, actually. And it almost seems like uh, um, um, we are even contending with the rights or the rights of our members. And you find that lawyers are harassed every day by security agencies in the course of carrying out their professional functions. And so, as the NBA, I think has has its work cut out for it, because firstly, we even need to protect the so-called protectors, because the lawyers themselves need protection. So the NBA has to be up and doing, has to rise stoutly in defense of its members who are harassed repeatedly by the security agencies simply for the fact that they are defending their clients. And when we are able to do that, maybe we will be able to intervene in the space, in the mainstream, where the rights of our citizens are on a daily basis reading over roughshod.
All right, Olumide, I needed to hold that thought for a second. Definitely quite a lot to unpack, and as we'll continue that when we begin in the second half of the show. I've been speaking to Olumide Akpata. He's a partner and head of corporate and commercial practice at Templars. We'll continue with the conversation after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Market. If you're just joining us, Olumide Akpata, the partner and head of corporate and commercial practice at Templars, is our guest today, and we're exploring how to reposition Nigeria's judiciary and to make it a more enhanced institution. And before we left off, Olumide was just talking about quite a lot around protecting human rights and what the NBA can do. But I would like to get into how to first build a more sustainable institution. And Olumide, I'd like to get your 2 cents on this.
So, Kenneth, which institution are we talking about?
Yeah, when you talk about first the NBA on one hand, and you talk about the entire judicial system in Nigeria, judiciary as a whole?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, as I've alluded to in the course of this conversation, we need to go back to the basics. There are certain foundational blocks that are absent. And for me, like I mentioned before, to build a judiciary that is sustainable, that can carry out its role in a sustainable manner, we will need to make sure that it is independent, that it has financial autonomy, that it is that we're recruiting the right people to man courts around the country, that we are training them properly, that not only is it financially autonomous, that is properly funded, because it's one thing to have financial autonomy and there's no cash in the bank. So it is properly funded, and then of course, so that the right infrastructure is put in place, so that justice is not only done but manifestly seen to be done. Because otherwise, it will continue to be ineffective. It will continue to be ineffectual, and if that remains the case, it will continue to lose the confidence of the members of society who really are the reason why the judiciary was established in the first place. So, linking that to another institution, the Nigerian Bar Association, that particular institution would need to also step up and play its role in protecting the judiciary, in ensuring that we build a viral judiciary, a strong judiciary, and one that can operate in an optimal manner. For a couple of reasons. Firstly, it is in our enlightened self-interest, because, as we say colloquially, that is our farm. That is where we operate. That is where we earn our living from. And if on a daily basis there is a degradation, as it were, of that institution, it stands to reason, or it goes without saying, that we are degraded by ourselves if that happens, because that is where most of us operate. So we will need to be up and doing as an association. So anybody who's leading the NBA has his work cut out for him or her. We would need to go back to the basics and intervene in that space. We would need to, like I've already said before, we would need to play the role that has been given to us. We need to play more actively.
All right, quite a lot of talk on judicial reforms going out there, and in your opinion, I'd like to get how we can ensure this will happen and with best practices.
Well, I don't know if I can give you any assurances. How will this happen? Judicial reform. At the beginning of this conversation, I must tell you that I will not be holding my breath for any review or reform of the judiciary does not involve a conversation starting from the top. We have made many attempts. We have had so many conversations. We have talked about the judiciary ad nauseum. We have talked about it so much, but all the time, on each occasion, implementation, we fall very short on implementation. So I think, like I said before, that to be able to get a judiciary that is fit for purpose, that ties in with all the forms of best practice that you and I know obtains in other jurisdictions, we will need to. It's a surgical operation. I mean that very seriously, because there are major systemic problems that will need intervention at a very high level of those who actually run this country. Because the judiciary goes to the heart of all that we do. The justice sector, it goes to the heart of all that we do. Human relations generally can only continue unimpeded, can only continue successfully if there is the confidence that in the event of dispute, we have a system of adjudication that can effectively deal with the disputes that arise between members of society in whatever capacity they are relating. So, like I said, I'm not holding my breath. I don't think we can be knee-jerk about it. I think that we will need to have a broad-based intervention. The only commitment I can make is that as a member of the legal profession, and to the extent that it is within my power to galvanize members of the profession, we will continue to push for that kind of intervention at that level. We will push for it, and we would work very hard to ensure that emerges. Anything short of that, I think we're pouring water into a basket.
All right, but still talking about intervention now, the COVID-19 pandemic has thrown quite a lot of stir around the world, and I'd like to get your suggestions on how best we can mitigate the impact on judicial processes going forward.
Yeah, so Kenneth, that is precisely my point. First and foremost, what COVID-19 did, it just exposed our vulnerabilities. And to be fair to the judiciary, not just the judiciary, it exposed our vulnerabilities across sectors. But we're focusing on the judiciary now, so let's deal with that. It just showed to us that we are so behind with regard to advancements in technology and so on and so forth. There are other jurisdictions in Africa who are already embracing technology. So let us not even go too far to countries outside of the continent. So, it's quite unforgivable that our judiciary was caught in the position that it was caught by COVID-19. Having said that, I am not one of those who would subscribe to a visceral reaction to the fact that we were caught in a situation where the judiciary was almost rendered comatose as a result of COVID-19. I'm not going to rush to say, okay, let's look for a quick fix. It must be a sustainable solution. And so I personally believe that this is the time to look inwards, to sit down and for example, when we consider the issue of virtual hearings in our courts, I'm not impressed by tokenism. I'm impressed by well thought out, deeply considered solutions. So I think at the level of the judiciary, it's important that those who are the leaders, those who are the stakeholders, sit down and fashion out something that would work on a sustainable basis. There's so much that we have to do with regard to embracing technology. It's bad enough that we hadn't done it before now, but it's okay, we are starting now. But what would be the crime or what would be the sin, in my estimation, is if even after not starting early enough, we now make a mess of implementing whatever it is that we decide to do. So I'm using virtual hearing as a case in point. I'm calling for those who are superintending these institutions to ensure that whatever solutions we bring forward, they are well thought out. We're talking about law. We're talking about access to justice. Whatever solutions we bring in response to COVID, whatever solutions we bring in response to the need for technology, it must be well thought out. And again, the Nigerian Bar has a major role to play in engaging with all concerned. I'm aware that the Chief Justice of Nigeria has put together a group working on how the judiciary can respond to the new normal. I'm hoping that they will give and that there will be a lot of deep thinking involved, because it's not a tea party. It's not a walk in the park. It's going to be it's a major change that we are about to effect.
All right, Olumide Akpata says enhancing Nigeria's judiciary is not a walk in the park. And thank you so much for your time on the show today. I've been speaking to Olumide Akpata. He's a partner and head of corporate and commercial practice at Templars. And that's it on Beyond Markets for today. And thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Remember, you can catch the show at 5 p.m. West Africa time daily and have access to all episodes of Beyond Markets on our website. That's at cnbcafrica.com. Kenneth Igbomor, and thank you so much for watching.